Hey everybody, welcome back to Jays Central, your number one destination for all things Toronto Blue Jays. Before we get rolling with today's breaking news, I need you to do me a quick favor. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it only takes a second, and it makes a huge difference in helping this content reach more Blue Jays fans like yourself. And while you're at it, drop a comment down below letting me know what you think about what we're discussing today. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your opinions. All right, let's jump right into the story that's got everyone talking. We're hearing from some very credible baseball insiders that the Toronto Blue Jays are actively showing interest in one of the premier arms still available in free agency, left-handed pitcher Framber Valdez. Now, before you say anything about the Jays already having plenty of starting pitching, stick with me here, because there's a lot more to unpack about why this could actually make a ton of sense for Toronto moving forward. First, let's establish who Framber Valdez is as a player, because if you're going to potentially add someone to an already crowded rotation, they better be worth it. This guy is widely regarded as the top free agent pitcher still sitting out there on the market. When you scan the list of unsigned players, there's Valdez, and then there's everyone else. He's in a class by himself at this point in the offseason. The only other player who comes close in terms of stature is right-hander Zach Gallen, and these two actually share something unique. They're the only remaining free agents who turned down the qualifying offer worth $22 million earlier in the winter. That tells you something important about their confidence in securing a much larger payday on the open market. So what has Valdez accomplished that makes him such an attractive target? Let's dive into the numbers because they paint a pretty compelling picture. Last season with the Houston Astros, the 32-year-old southpaw posted a record of 13 wins against 11 losses with an earned run average of 3.66. He made 31 starts, which shows durability and reliability, two qualities every team craves in their rotation. But here's where it gets really impressive. Valdez struck out 187 batters across 192 innings of work. That strikeout rate demonstrates he's not just eating innings, he's dominating hitters when he's on the mound. Now, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture of Valdez's career, the track record becomes even more impressive. Ever since he transitioned to being a full-time starting pitcher back in 2020, this guy has been remarkably consistent. Over that span, he carries an earned run average of 3.23. That's genuinely elite production over multiple seasons, not just a one-year fluke. He's earned 2 All-Star selections during this period, which means his peers and the baseball world at large recognize him as one of the premier pitchers in the game. But wait, there's more, and this is where Valdez's resume really shines. Back in 2022, he played an absolutely crucial role in helping the Houston Astros capture a World Series championship. When the lights were brightest and the stakes were highest, Valdez delivered in a massive way during the Fall Classic. In 2 World Series starts against the Philadelphia Phillies, he posted an absolutely ridiculous earned run average of 1.46. Think about that for a second. The pressure of the World Series, facing a tough Phillies lineup, and this guy just shuts them down. Houston won that series in 6 games, and Valdez was a huge reason why they brought the trophy back to Texas. If you haven't liked this video yet, now's the perfect time. Help us out by showing some love. And don't forget to tell me in the comments whether you think Valdez would be a good fit in Toronto. When you step back and look at Valdez's entire major league career, you're looking at someone with serious pedigree. He's an 8-year veteran at this point, so he's not some young kid trying to figure things out. He knows what it takes to succeed at the highest level. Over 188 regular season appearances in the big leagues, he owns a career earned run average of 3.36. That level of consistency over nearly 200 games is exactly what championship contending teams are searching for when they're building their roster. Now here's where the conversation gets really interesting for Blue Jays fans. Toronto has been absolutely aggressive this entire offseason, particularly when it comes to adding starting pitching depth. This isn't a front office that's sitting back and hoping things work out. They're being proactive, they're spending money, and they're making bold moves to improve the roster. The headliner, of course, was the massive signing of right-hander Dylan Cease to a 7-year contract worth $210 million. That's franchise-altering money for a pitcher who should anchor the rotation for years to come. But the Cease signing wasn't the only move Toronto made to bolster their starting pitching. They also brought in right-hander Cody Ponce on a 3-year deal worth $30 million. That might not sound like a ton of money compared to the Cease contract, but it shows the organization is willing to invest at multiple levels of the pitching market. Additionally, Shane Bieber, a former Cy Young Award winner, decided to opt into his $16 million player option, which keeps him in Toronto for another season. That's another high-caliber arm staying in the rotation. So when you count up all the starting pitchers currently under contract for the upcoming season, the numbers start to pile up quickly. You've got Kevin Gausman, who's been one of the most consistent performers in baseball over the past few years. There's Trey Yesavich, a young arm with plenty of upside. Jose Barrios is still in the mix, providing veteran stability. Then you add the newcomers and returning players, Cease, Bieber, and Ponce, and suddenly you're looking at 6 established starters before you even consider additional depth options. And speaking of depth, the Blue Jays also have Eric Lauer and Bowden Francis under contract. These two guys combined to make 29 starts last season, so they're not just organizational filler. They're legitimate pitchers who have proven they can handle major league innings when called upon. Francis in particular showed some really encouraging signs in his opportunities last year. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss an update. And seriously, drop a comment. I want to know if you think adding Valdez makes sense or if it's overkill. Given everything I just laid out about Toronto's current pitching situation, you might be wondering why on earth they'd even be considering adding another starter like Framber Valdez. On the surface, it seems like they've already got more than enough arms to fill out a rotation and then some. But here's the thing about baseball, and especially about starting pitching. You can never have too much of it. Let me explain why the Blue Jays' interest in Valdez actually makes a lot more strategic sense than you might initially think. First off, let's talk about the fragile nature of starting pitching in today's game. Injuries are basically inevitable over the course of a 162-game season. No matter how careful you are with pitch counts, no matter how good your training staff is, pitchers are going to miss time. It's just the reality of the sport. When you look at Toronto's rotation, there are some legitimate injury concerns that make depth absolutely critical. Shane Bieber, for instance, is coming off some arm issues that have raised questions about his durability. Can he give you 30 starts and 200 innings? Maybe, but there are no guarantees. Trey Yesavich is a talented young pitcher, but he's still relatively unproven at the major league level. Young arms can be unpredictable. Sometimes they exceed expectations, sometimes they hit a wall, sometimes they get hurt. You hope for the best, but you have to plan for various scenarios. Cody Ponce is coming over from Korea, which means there's an adjustment period to consider. The quality of competition, the schedule, the travel, the baseball itself, it's all different. He might be fantastic right out of the gate, or he might need some time to find his footing. What Framber Valdez would bring to this equation is certainty. You know exactly what you're getting with him. He's proven he can stay healthy and make 30-plus starts year after year. He's proven he can handle the pressure of big moments. He's proven he can perform in different contexts, regular season, playoffs, World Series. That kind of reliability is incredibly valuable, especially when you're trying to win a championship. Think about the competitive landscape of the American League for a second. The level of competition is absolutely brutal right now. You've got powerhouse teams in almost every division that are capable of making deep playoff runs. If you're the Blue Jays and you're serious about winning a World Series, you need every possible advantage. You can't afford to have question marks in your rotation. You can't afford to be one injury away from having to rely on your 6th or 7th starter in a crucial playoff game. Having 7 legitimate starting pitchers means you can withstand the inevitable injuries and still have championship-caliber arms taking the ball every night. Before you keep watching, make sure you've hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, what do you think the Jays' biggest need is right now? Let me know in the comments. There's also the workload management angle to consider here. Baseball is starting to take pitcher health much more seriously than in previous generations. Teams are being smarter about not overworking their starters, especially younger pitchers who might not have built up the arm strength for massive inning totals. If you have depth in your rotation, you can afford to be strategic about how you use guys. You can skip a start here and there when someone's feeling fatigued. You can limit innings for younger arms without compromising your ability to win games. You can keep everyone fresh for September and October when games matter most. Let's also talk about the element of competition within the roster. When you have multiple quality starters, it creates an environment where everyone's pushing each other to be better. Nobody wants to be the weak link. Nobody wants to be the guy who gets skipped in the playoff rotation. That internal competition can drive performance in ways that are hard to quantify, but definitely real. If you're Kevin Gausman or Jose Berrios and you know the guy warming up in the bullpen is a two-time All-Star who can pitch in the World Series, you're going to bear down and compete at your absolute highest level. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't this a lot of money to invest in starting pitching when there are other areas of the roster that might need attention? That's a fair question, and it's something the front office is undoubtedly weighing carefully. But here's my take on it. In modern baseball, elite starting pitching is the most valuable commodity you can acquire. Look at the teams that win championships year after year. They all have multiple frontline starters who can dominate for 6 or 7 innings. The days of riding one ace through the playoffs are mostly over. You need depth, you need quality, and you need guys who can perform under pressure. The Blue Jays have made it abundantly clear through their actions this winter that they're in win-now mode. They're not rebuilding. They're not in a holding pattern. They're going for it. When you're operating with that mindset, you make decisions that prioritize short-term competitiveness, even if it means taking on additional payroll commitments. Ownership has opened up the checkbook in a way we haven't seen before from this franchise, and that creates opportunities to add impact talent that might not have been possible in previous years. Here's another factor worth considering: the market dynamics for Valdez at this stage of the offseason. We're well into February now, which is late by free agency standards. Most teams have already filled their rotation spots and allocated their budgets. The pool of potential suitors for Valdez has shrunk considerably since the winter began. This creates a situation where Toronto might be able to acquire him at a more favorable price than would have been possible back in November or December. If other teams have moved on and the Jays are one of the few organizations still seriously engaged, they have leverage in negotiations. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We're bringing you Blue Jays content every single day, and I don't want you to miss out. Hit that bell icon for notifications too. Valdez is 32 years old, which in baseball terms means he's on the back nine of his career. Teams are naturally more hesitant to commit long-term big money to pitchers in their 30s because of injury risk and potential decline. But here's the thing: Valdez isn't some guy who's been breaking down and showing signs of wear and tear. He threw 192 innings last year. His strikeout rate was excellent. His earned run average was solid. He's not a pitcher who's hanging on by a thread. He's still in his prime, even if he's not 25 years old anymore. Let's shift gears and talk about what a potential contract for Framber Valdez might look like, because that's ultimately what's going to determine whether this becomes reality or just stays as speculation. When Valdez turned down that $22 million qualifying offer, he and his agent clearly believed they could secure significantly more money on the open market. The question is whether that belief has been validated by how things have played out this winter. In a perfect world for Valdez, he probably envisioned getting something in the range of 5 or 6 years with an average annual value north of $30 million. That would put him in the same conversation as some of the other elite starting pitchers who signed earlier in the offseason. But we don't live in a perfect world, and the market rarely develops exactly the way players hope. The fact that he's still unsigned in February suggests that teams haven't been willing to meet his asking price, at least not yet. So what's realistic at this point? My guess is we're looking at something in the neighborhood of 4 years with a total value somewhere between $110 million and $130 million. That would give Valdez the long-term security he's seeking while also giving the signing team some protection against the downside risk of committing to a pitcher in his 30s. You might also see some creative contract structuring with opt-outs or performance bonuses that allow both sides to feel like they're getting a fair deal. For the Blue Jays specifically, even a contract in that range would represent a substantial financial commitment on top of everything they've already spent this winter. But when you've already crossed the luxury tax threshold and you're paying penalties anyway, what's another $30 million in annual payroll? The incremental cost isn't as significant as it would be for a team trying to stay just under the tax line. Toronto has already decided they're all in, so they might as well go all the way. If you're still watching, you're awesome. Show some love by hitting that like button one more time, and make sure you comment your prediction for where Valdez signs. Will it be Toronto or somewhere else? One thing that makes Valdez particularly attractive is his track record of success in the postseason. We talked earlier about his World Series performance, but it's worth emphasizing again because playoff experience is so valuable. Lots of pitchers can rack up wins in April and May when the pressure is minimal. Fewer pitchers can maintain their composure and execute their pitches when it's October and every mistake gets magnified. Valdez has been there and done that. He knows what it takes to win in those moments. For a Blue Jays team that's trying to break through and win their first championship in decades, having that kind of veteran presence could be invaluable. There's also something to be said for the psychological impact of making a signing like this. When you're a player watching your front office operate, you're paying attention to whether they're serious about winning. Talk is cheap. Anybody can say they want to compete for a championship. But when a team continues to add high-level talent even after they've already made significant moves, it sends a message. It tells the players in that clubhouse that ownership and management are committed to doing whatever it takes to win. That can create a culture of expectation and excellence that permeates throughout the entire organization. Let's also consider the fan engagement aspect of potentially adding Valdez. The Blue Jays have one of the most passionate fan bases in all of baseball, but there's been frustration in recent years about the team's inability to get over the hump and make a deep playoff run. Fans want to see the organization be aggressive. They want to see big moves that signal serious championship intentions. Bringing in a pitcher of Valdez's caliber, especially after already landing Dylan Cease, would generate enormous excitement and buzz heading into spring training. It would give fans another reason to believe this could finally be the year. Now, I do want to acknowledge the counterargument here, because it's important to consider all perspectives. Some people will say the Blue Jays should be more focused on addressing other areas of the roster. Maybe the bullpen, maybe adding another impact bat, maybe improving the defense. Those are all valid points. Baseball is a game of resource allocation, and every dollar you spend on starting pitching is a dollar you can't spend somewhere else. The front office has to make tough decisions about where they believe investments will have the biggest impact on wins and losses. My response to that concern is simple. Elite starting pitching is the foundation of championship teams. If you look at World Series winners over the past decade, almost all of them had multiple frontline starters who could dominate games. You can patch together a bullpen with smart acquisitions and internal development. You can survive with an offense that has a few holes if your pitching is good enough. But you absolutely cannot win a championship without excellent starting pitching. It's the one area where you can't afford to be mediocre. Make sure you're following Jays Central for daily updates on everything Blue Jays. Like, subscribe, and comment to stay connected with our community. The other element to think about is the timeline for Toronto's championship window. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette are both approaching free agency in the next couple years. The core of this team is in their prime right now. You can't waste these years hoping things come together down the road. The time to win is now, while you have this collection of talent under contract and before you have to make difficult decisions about who to keep and who to let walk. If adding Framber Valdez improves your chances of winning a World Series in 2026 or 2027, you do it without hesitation. I also think there's something to be said for the strategic flexibility that having 7 quality starters provides. Say you make it to the playoffs and you want to use someone out of the bullpen in a high-leverage situation. If you have depth in your rotation, you can afford to move a guy like Bowden Francis or Eric Lauer to a relief role for the postseason without completely depleting your starting pitching. That kind of roster maneuverability can be the difference between winning and losing a playoff series. Looking at this situation from Valdez's perspective for a moment, Toronto has to be an attractive landing spot. They're a team with legitimate championship aspirations. They play in a great baseball city with passionate fans. They've got a strong core of position players and now an increasingly impressive pitching staff. If you're Valdez and you're choosing between a few different options, why wouldn't you want to be part of what the Blue Jays are building? The opportunity to compete for a championship while also securing a significant long-term contract is exactly what free agents are looking for. So here's my final analysis on this entire situation. I genuinely believe there's a strong possibility we see Framber Valdez in a Blue Jays uniform when the season starts. The fit makes sense from multiple angles. Toronto has the financial resources and the organizational commitment to winning. Valdez has the talent and track record to make an immediate impact. The market conditions favor a deal getting done at a number both sides can live with. Obviously, nothing is certain until someone signs on the dotted line, but all the pieces are in place for this to happen. That's going to wrap up today's video here on Jays Central. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and support what we're building here. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button one last time. It truly makes a difference. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an update. Most importantly, jump into the comments and let me know what you think. Should the Jays go after Valdez hard, or should they stand pat with what they have? I read every comment, and I love the discussions that happen in our community. Until next time, let's go Blue Jays.